Well, good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode, yes, of Think and Grow Rich Mastermind Live. Hi, my name is Ann Mcneill, and I am, yes, I am. I am the master wealth builder, helping to build stronger and better lives and businesses. And I am very excited today because we're talking about another phenomenal principle. And that principle is none other than infinite intelligence. And it's going to be a little different today because I'm going to share actually, excuse me, I'm sharing from the book and I am going to actually share the book. So I'm asking you to join me as we walk through this principle espoused by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich, in particular, the sixth sense, in particular, the door to the temple of wisdom. You can call it whatever you choose. You can call it infinite intelligence. You can call it Om, Buddha, Spirit, God, whatever you choose to call it. I choose to call it the Spirit. But for the purpose of this podcast, we are going to call it the infinite intelligence. Now, right before we do that, we're going to talk about the entire philosophy, starting with desire, the entire 13 principles. And this will give you an opportunity to comment, like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel, but also invite your family, friends, loved ones, and everybody to join us because I'm encouraging you to participate in this podcast today with me. All right, so we're going to share the 13 principles. And of course, for many of you, you've come a lot. Uh, well, you've come some. And so, we'd like to share these principles from the beginning because we cannot assume that everybody is familiar with the book, Think and Grow Rich, and or this philosophy. So if you would just hang in here with me as I share. Uh, yes, there we go. There we go. There we go. All right.
Number one is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step two is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step three is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically. But we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number four is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number five is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step six, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number seven is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step eight is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
All right. All right. Thank you so very much. And welcome, Johnny and Colette. Welcome to the podcast. And again, if you have any questions, please place them in the chat, or if you have a comment you'd like for me to share. And we're going to go ahead and start discussing this principle. But I'm going to also share the actual principle. And today I'm going to do something a little different because we're going to walk directly from, we're going to walk from the book and look at what are the actual words that Napoleon Hill shares. All right, so how about I turn off my video and we're going to just walk through this. So as you walk through this with me, I really want you to think about, how do you use the infinite intelligence? How do you use the sixth sense? Now, and I think I'm sharing twice. Okay, no. All right, let's start. Napoleon Hill shares with us that the 13th principle is known as the sixth sense, through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. And this principle is the apex of this philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles. And personally, as I began to prepare today for this, I began to ask myself the question, how do I use the sixth sense? And what I realized in my own life is the fact that every one of us can connect with the infinite intelligence within us by focusing on three things. First, and these are just my beliefs, I believe that we must acknowledge that the infinite does exist. That's first. Then, second, I believe that we really should start in considering, list out and analyze your adversities, your defeats, and how has the infinite intelligence connected to your defeats? And I'll come back to that. And then, thirdly, begin to create a process whereby you are able to connect with the infinite intelligence in a way that works for you. All right. Now, Napoleon Hill goes on to say, excuse me, that this sixth sense is that portion of the subconscious mind which has been referred to as the creative imagination. It has also been referred to as the receiving set through which ideas, plans, and thoughts flash into the mind. Now, these flashes are sometimes called hunches or inspirations. And I'll stop there for a second. When I first began to study this philosophy, eons, I mean, yes, for me, excuse me, it was really back in 1979. But right about 1980, I began to realize that I did not know much about this particular principle. My mom was a holiness minister. She taught me um, to study the word, but I did not really quite understand how to live the word. But once I was introduced to this concept, introduced to this philosophy, introduced to this infinite intelligence, back 1979, 1980 by Napoleon Hill, that point was a point where I was broken. Let me say that again, broke and broken. And all I really wanted to do was find a way to get out of debt. I did not know how, I did not know when. All I knew that this could possibly work. I wasn't sure, but I knew it could work by believing and having the faith and actually doing the exercises on page 28. I don't know what version you're using, but for me, it was page 28, where Napoleon Hill asked me, Anne Mcneill, how much money do you want? Number one. What are you willing to do? Number two. By what date do you want the money by? Number three. Number four, create a plan of action. Number five, create an affirmation statement. And number six, recite that statement twice a day. And as I began to do that, what began to happen is this next step, he says here. The sixth sense began to kick in with my subconscious. And I began to have creative ideas of what I could do. I began to think of people that I could connect within a mastermind group. And once we got together, all of us together inside of that mastermind group, flashes of inspiration began to come, hunches, thoughts. Then the actions began to start. But how does this connect to infinite intelligence, you may ask? What I want you to think about for yourself is this. Think of the struggles and challenges that you may have overcome. As you think about those, we're going to go to this next step. He says here, the sixth sense defies description. It cannot be described to a person who has not mastered the other principles of this philosophy, because such a person has no knowledge and no experience with which the sixth sense may be compared. Understanding the sixth sense comes only by meditation through mind development from within. And this, to me, is where the work started. I began to go within and write down during my time of meditation, began to write down my problem, write down my struggle, write down my challenges. Infinite intelligence, the spirit, God, Christ, whoever you worship, I want each of you to consider this. Something began to happen from within. I had an idea. I had another idea. Let me share an example. Within a mastermind group, we were having a meeting. And first year, I decided I wanted to start a construction company. I had a corporate job at the time. Second year, I kept talking about it. By the time I got to the third year, one of our mastermind members, who was sick and tired of being sick and tired of me, said, "Why don't you do something? Take a class." I had never thought about taking a class to study to pass the exam in order to qualify my business. But for the mere fact that I had written it down, from within, the desire emerged. From without, outside ideas from friends, from reading, from sermons, from conferences, from workshops. As I started with the first idea, take a course, I took the course. I took the test. I failed. I continued to take the course. I continued to take the test. I failed. Failed. Yes, 6 times I failed that test. But I did not stop and just sit down and bemoan my problem. I continued to focus on the ultimate goal, which number one was getting out of debt. And then number two was starting a business. So now let's continue. He goes on and says the sixth sense probably is the medium of contact between the infinite mind of man and infinite intelligence. And for this reason, it is a mixture of both, of the mental and the spiritual. It is believed to be the point at which the mind of man contacts universal intelligence. You see, all along my journey, as I began to read this and the other principles, I began to realize how they connected to each other for me. Now, I want each of you to think about, how does it connect for you? Maybe it does, maybe it does not. But he goes on to share that after you have mastered these principles described in this book, you will be prepared to accept as truth a statement which may otherwise be incredible to you. Namely, through the aid of the sixth sense, you will be warned of impinging dangers in time to avoid them. And notified, I'm going to stop there. As I began to reflect during this process of preparing for today, I began to go back in my mind and think about impending dangers. A year ago, during the Christmas holidays, I got out of my car and did not realize that I left my handbag under the seat. Inside the car, I also left my key to the car because weekly I get my car washed same day. I have to give them the key, and then once I get in my car, I put the key back in my handbag. Well, I forgot. I've been driving for 4 hours, and all I wanted to do was get in the house. I quickly got out of the car, got into the house. As I was going to sleep, something said, yes, something. Something for you can be whatever you want to call it. I call it the spirit. The spirit said, get up and go to the car and get your handbag out. I didn't. I said, I'll get it in the morning, which would have been Saturday morning, the morning of the podcast. This was a year ago, December. I turn over, I go to sleep. I cannot rest. Again, by now it's 3 o'clock. Something said, go out to the car and get your handbag. I did not. Finally, when the sun began to rise, as I got up to go walk, I went to my car to get my handbag. And you already know from me telling this story, the handbag was gone. Thankfully, the key was still in the car, and the person did not see the key, but they saw the handbag underneath the seat. They took the handbag. Last Saturday, excuse me, last Friday, in preparation for this podcast, I'm an early riser. Impending dangers. We're saying this is my point about the sixth sense when it speaks. You can decide how do you respond to the sixth sense when it speaks to you. I am learning to be more responsive, but I am a work in progress. Last Friday, I go to bed, I get up about 3 o'clock and preparing for the podcast. 3:45. I am now in the bathroom preparing to take a shower. And I hear a noise. And I know there should not be a noise outside. I open the window, I see nothing. I go to the office next to the bathroom in the house, I see nothing. But I know I heard a noise. I go back and continue what I was doing. 7 o'clock, we prep for the show. 8 o'clock, we host a show. 9 o'clock, when I finish, I walk out of the home office, and my husband's car has been broken into. I heard it, but I did not check the front of the house. What's my point to all of us? You determine how do you respond to the sixth sense when it speaks, whether you call it infinite intelligence, you call it the spirit, whatever you call it. The author says, through the aid of the sixth sense, you will be warned of impending dangers in time to avoid them, and also notified of opportunities in time to embrace them. And I'd like to challenge each of you as you come on and as you listen, think about what opportunities that have come to you through the spirit, through the hunch that you did not respond to. Somebody else did. But also think about the opportunities that came to you through the spirit, through infinite intelligence, through a hunch, through a word, through a scripture, whatever it was, a reading that you did respond to. My desire here today is to just encourage us to think about how you interact with the infinite intelligence, to recognize the fact that it does, in fact, exist. But each of us must determine how frequently we are going to respond. You see, when I started this journey in 1979, and as I began to reflect now, and I reflect on 5 businesses later, when I reflect on 6 books later, when I reflect on the thousands of people whose lives I've touched, I realize I've not begun to scratch the surface. And so being here today is my way of giving back to the spirit, to the infinite, my struggles, my challenges, my problems, and how I am overcoming, not have overcome, but how I am learning to overcome, but also how to share with all of you. As you share with me, I do believe that together we are learning how to connect with that sixth sense. So let's continue to read. He says that whether or not this is a statement of truth, going back to this, let me go back. Through the aid of the sixth sense, you will be warned of impending dangers and time enough to avoid them, and notified of opportunities in time to embrace them. There comes to your aid, and in doing your bidding, the development of the sixth sense, the development of a guardian angel, the development of the spirit, the development of infinite intelligence, home, Buddha, whatever it is, whoever it is you worship. I just believe that as you begin to learn how to connect, your guardian angel who will open to you at all times the temple of wisdom. And I think that, if each of us would just take a moment and think about what does that mean to you? The temple of wisdom. What does it mean to you? Where is it for you? Because oftentimes we can think about many different things as relates to the word. And I often remind myself when it comes to the word, if you will. How can I live a word I do not know? Good morning, Gloria Riley. Good morning, Doretha, and again, Shannon, Colette, and Johnny. We're talking about the infinite intelligence. We're talking about the sixth sense, and I elected to pull up the principle today on the screen, read through it, and share with all of you some thoughts that I have on this subject and some experiences. So if you have any questions or comments, please, you can share them in the chat. All right, thank you. All right, the author goes on to say, the author is not a believer in nor an advocate of miracles. For this reason, he has enough knowledge of nature to understand that nature never deviates from her established laws. Can I say that again? Never. Nature never deviates from her established laws. Some of her laws are also incomprehensible, and they may produce what may appear to be miracles. The sixth sense comes as near to being a miracle as anything I have ever experienced, he goes on to share. And I want to challenge each of us to just think about in your own business or your life or your family, what does this look like to you? Because he shares as it appears, only because I do not understand the method by which these principles is operated. This such author does not know. This much the author does know. He does know this, that there is a power or a first cause or an intelligence which permeates every atom of matter and embraces every unit of energy perceptible to man. That this infinite intelligence converts acorns into oak trees, causes water to flow downhill in response to the law of gravity, which follows night with day and winter with summer, each maintaining its proper place and relationship to the other. This intelligence made through the principles of this philosophy be induced to aid in transmuting desires into concrete or material form. The author has this knowledge because he has experimented with it and has experienced it. I am reminded here at this point of a story that I read. I think it was by Joseph Murphy. He wrote a book entitled, don't remember the title of the book. It may come back to me. Okay, I think it's maybe psychic perceptions. I think it's psychic perceptions. But anyway, he tells a story that I wanted to share because I think it's so interesting, especially since most of us are ladies on here. He tells a story of an article that was in his book, a contribution by a lady by the name of Dr. Elsie McCoy, and she was from Beverly Hills. And she was engaged to a prominent doctor. He was a physician, very prominent. But she was also prominent herself. And because of that, each of them, even during their engagement, were assigned in two different parts of the world. Now, we're talking about here experiencing the desire for the infinite intelligence to connect with you and help you in whatever it is you're desiring. And Napoleon Hill shares some of his experience, but this was one that I thought was interesting. She was engaged to this doctor. They were separated, by at least 1,000 miles. And um, and she had an affirmation that she used because a large part of this infinite intelligence philosophy speaks to in whether it's a prayer or an affirmation, whatever it is that you choose to recite daily and to affirm and believe and have faith, it happens. So she, since age 18, she made a habit of affirming during the day and at night that only divine actions take place in my life. And whatever I need to know is revealed to me instantly by the infinite intelligence within me. And because of her gradual reiteration of this, um, she goes on to share that I'm sorry, I'm laughing, I'm getting ahead of myself. She goes on to share in the book the story. She says, one night I was sound asleep and she in her sleep, saw in her sleep her fiance talking to a nurse and dating the nurse for a weekend. But he was saying to the nurse, now you know I'm engaged, but she is 1,000 miles away. So basically, she'll never know about this. The following morning, now this is her dream. She's dreaming this. The following morning, when she woke, she called the doctor, laughing, and said to him, let me share with you this silly, crazy dream I had. And as she was laughing and describing to him exactly what happened, his words to the nurse, he became furious. And now he, I'm sorry, he became furious and then he began to accuse her of spying on him. Now, this was just a dream, or was it? Of course, she cut off the engagement. But my point in sharing this story is this: how often do each of us have a dream and then we shove it off? You see, her right action basically activated in her mind and in her subconscious that revealed to her what she needed to know before she married him. But what about each of us? What is it that we are affirming or should be affirming with belief and faith and conviction of that belief? You see, I do believe that the Spirit, infinite intelligence, God, whoever you worship, is really seeking to protect us. But will we only listen? Will we listen? I can't answer for everybody else. I can just only say I'm working on it. Let me continue to read. Step by step, through the preceding chapters, you have been led to this, the last principle. If you have mastered each of the preceding principles, you are now prepared to accept, without being skeptical, the stupendous claims made here. If you have not mastered the other principles, you must do so before you may determine definitely whether or not these claims in this chapter are fact or fiction. And I just want to challenge each of us as we stop and think about the previous principles. If you start with your own desire, what is that? And if you're not clear on what the desire is, how are we really clear about what it is that we expect to receive if we're not telling the infinite exactly what we desire? This has just been such a profound um, principle for me, because the more I study it, And for those of you that are familiar with our Clarity Mastermind, um, just personally, I have started inside of Clarity. And for those of you that's not, Clarity Mastermind, you can go to my website at annmcneill.com and /coaching. Actually, our next meeting is Tuesday coming. But months ago, I personally decided within the Clarity Mastermind, as I do my clarity work, and I call it my date with myself every day, that whatever principle that I am on in the book, because we study a new principle, a different principle each month, that I would go to YouTube and to TEDx, and for 30 days, I would watch a video on that particular principle. So last month was the brain, and I did 30 different videos on the brain. This month is infinite intelligence, the sixth sense, and I have done 30. Well, today made 30. Okay. So I've done 30 different videos and some books and readings and things like that on the principle. Not a lot every day. You know, most videos may be max, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 15, whatever it is. But my point though is this, as I begin to connect at a higher level within my own relationship with infinite intelligence, I begin to realize that I'm not scratching the surface. I've not even begun to scratch the surface. So between the word of God and these principles and the TEDx and just living life, I'm realizing that oftentimes these principles, if I study them and be honest to allow the Spirit to reveal to me whatever it is that I need to know and to do and to act on relating my desire will come to fruition. Quick story. Many years ago, many years ago, I'm going back to this principle where he talks about connecting the principles and the fact that there is a first cause. Many years ago, I had a desire, and this is at least 25 years ago now. I had a desire to go to Africa. I'd always heard about Africa, never gone, and I had a desire to go. I had no money. When I say no money, no money. I had a job. It was not a corporate job. It was a job in construction working for a Black contractor who was struggling. Therefore, I was struggling. He paid me sometimes and sometimes he did not. But that did not deter my desire. Now I'm still in the book. I'm still reading this book, still masterminding with our mastermind group. A friend who knew that I had that desire shared with me an article that he read in a magazine. Now I'm going back to opportunities when Napoleon Hill talks about impending dangers, but also opportunities, but will we act on the opportunities? He shared with me the story, the article. I read the article, and it shared with me that a guy by the name of Dr. Leon Sullivan um, was planning a trip to Africa. He had an organization called African American Summit, and he was going to host this trip every 2 years. So when I read the article, the trip was going to come up the following year. I can't, I'm in these principles, and I'm thinking about Barnes, principle one, having a desire, but don't know how you're going to achieve it. Now, I'm connecting my principle one to this principle in infinite intelligence. You see, infinite intelligence would tell you every step of the way what to do next, every step. So I had a desire, I wanted to go. The article shows up. My friend shares the article with me. I read the article, I contact the organization. He gives me the amount of money that I need for the trip. I don't have the money. I share with them, I want to go, but I don't have the money. And then my memory kicked in, and I remembered my mom when I was smaller. She would go to buy something from the store, didn't have the money, and they had, for Black folks especially, a layaway plan. And so I asked the people, I said, listen, can I put this trip on layaway? They started laughing. But one lady in that office was old enough to know the phrase. And she said, honey, yes, what would you like to do? I said, I would like to give you $20 a week from my pay until I pay it off. Can you accept that? She said, yes. Let me fast forward. A year later, because of this, following this infinite intelligence, the spirit, not only was I able to go and finish paying my way, but I was also able to take my 6-year-old, which was Ione at the time, and she's 34 now. But I was able to take her with me on that trip. To this day, there are many, many people that I met from Africa and that I met from the United States because 2,000 people went on that trip from the US. And we are, many of us, still in connection to this day. So I shared that to just share how, when you take the first step and the next step, but be willing to move in accordance with whatever the infinite is sharing with you, you need to do in order to achieve your own goals. Now, I don't see any questions in the chat. Good morning, Imelda. Gloria again. Shannon, everybody. Yes, this is solo day, and I'm walking through this principle entitled Infinite Intelligence. And I want to thank all of you for joining. We're going to go ahead and start wrapping up. A few minutes left. Napoleon Hill shares, he said, while I was passing through the age of hero worship, I found myself trying to imitate those whom I most admired. Moreover, I discovered that the element of faith, which I endeavored to imitate my idols, gave me great capacity to do so quite successfully. Now, I want to stop here and share that when I started my construction company, I remember reading this section. And I remember having an aha moment in this. And in my book, it's actually highlighted. And in my margins, I wrote that um, this whole idea of connecting with other spirits, if you will, living or not, to develop the character that I desired to do and be the best contractor I could. Reading these lines helped me to then begin to search. Now I'll go back and read. He said, long before I'd ever written a line for publication or endeavored to deliver a speech in public, I followed the habit of reshaping my own character by trying to imitate the 9 men whose lives and life works have been most impressive to me. These 9 men were Emerson, Paine, Edison, Darwin, Lincoln, Napoleon, Ford, and Carnegie. He goes on to describe, he says, every night, over a long period of years, I held an imaginary council meeting with this group, whom I called my invisible counselors. The procedure was this: just before going to sleep at night, I would shut my eyes and see in my imagination this group of men seated with me around my council table. I want to stop here because many of you may have heard about the council table, John Maxwell, if any of you follow him. Listen intently. John Maxwell and so many people we listen to, whether it's Jim Rohn and Les Brown, a lot of these people use these principles. And there's certain words and certain phrases that you can see in today's time where people have lifted and built $1 million businesses from there. And this is one, when I read this word, I was reminded of John Maxwell. Thank you, Imelda. She says, my entire trip, oh, excellent. My entire trip to Dubai was paid for based on opportunities. The plane ticket was paid. My affirmation was that I would travel. Oh, Imelda, thank you. She says, the plane ticket was paid for. My affirmation was that I would travel to Dubai and Africa in 2023. it came to pass. And I have to say this, Email, I'm so glad you made this statement because we're planning our, and it might be a good place to stop here. Yes, this is a good place to stop here. Let me stop sharing and let me turn my video back on. But Imelda, thank you so very much for sharing that because um, I did receive your message as you were sharing that you are not going to be able to join us uh, for our annual meeting. But I do want you to know that we're looking forward to celebrating you, even though you're not going to be able to join us. We will be celebrating you there. Yes, yes, we will be celebrating you. And also Chandra Lawson. And I want to let the world know that many years ago, and you can put in the chat email to help me get it right. Um, help me get it right. But as a part of our original mastermind group, many of us have been together 10, 20, 30. Some of us met yesterday. We've been together 40 years. Yes. But I wanted to just acknowledge you, Imelda, Nefreda Thomas, Chandra Lawson, and many of you who over 20 years ago set goals in the education area of your life. And to this day, you have achieved that goal. And so this year, Imelda and, excuse me, this year, Dr. Imelda Wallace and Dr. Chandra Lawson, both part of our original masterminders in the first set, second set, third set of masterminders. Both of those ladies achieved, they earned, literally, it was not given to them, but they earned their PhD. So if I could ask all of you in the chat, if you can give them some love, um, and we're so very proud of you, Imelda. Like I said, I know you're not going to be able to join us, but I did want to make sure that we let the world know. She also says my affirmation and the money was that I would have $3,000 for the trip. I went with $3,500 in birthday gifts. Oh, I will be there Friday. I am coming at 1 o'clock on Saturday. All right. Well, I already let the cat out the bag. I already let the cat out the bag. I really just want to just share that this is a critical time for us. I do want to share that we are planning on hosting our annual meeting for our life, um, and that we want all of you to consider joining us on joining us when we host our annual meeting. This is going to be held on the 5th and 6th of January 2024. We will be, oh, thank you. Thank you, Johnny, everybody. Imelda, we're sending you love. So on the 2024, January the 5th and 6th, we will be in Pompano Beach, Florida, hosted by Hilton, celebrating the annual meeting for our lives. And this is not a conference, it is a meeting. And I just want to share that because oftentimes we think that when we go to a conference, there's going to be this keynote speaker and we're going to sit and listen and be talked at. This is not that meeting. Oftentimes we don't realize that we can go through our entire year, week by week by week, month by month, and never stop and think about your goals for your spiritual life. What are your goals for your family? Do you have a family mission statement? I'll pause there and give you a chance to answer. Do you have goals for your financial area of your life? How about education? How about health? I had the opportunity week. This week, I had the opportunity to have an aha moment in my health, whereby because I'm going through the annual meeting survey and I'm checking off things to make sure that I got yeses and the nos. I make sure I take care of those. Well, one of the goals that we had as a part of our mastermind group was that we would all get disability insurance as a group 1 year. And then 1 year we decided all get long-term care. Well, in order to get the insurance, you have to go to an insurance company, of course. Now I'm still on infinite intelligence here. And so I went and I applied. The insurance company came back with my records from my doctor and said that in 2019 that my doctor missed an exam that I should have had in 2019. Contacted my doctor. They scheduled the exam 3 weeks ago. Once I had the exam, it showed something that was in my neck. Yes, they missed it 2019. What if I was not doing the survey? What if I was not checking off the box that said I needed to get this particular insurance? What if the insurance company missed it like the doctor missed it? So, of course, yesterday I went to my doctor and I got um, a prescription to have a biopsy done because that's what the exam showed that there was something there. My point is this is your life, each one of you listening to me. And if you have not decided to join us, especially if you are local, please plan to join us in Boca Raton. Excuse me, not Boca Raton, in Pompano Beach, Florida. Doretha says, after attending the 2023 meeting, my husband and I set goals in at least 5 of the 10 areas. Thank you. And Johnny, I know you're also planning to attend and join us. So thank you also for coming. Listen, I think all of you know, and I shared with our mastermind group yesterday, doing this podcast today, for those of you that come often, I don't need to talk about certain things. This is a goal for me to grow. I'm not going to use the excuse that because this happened, that happened. No, I said, no, I don't need any help. I'm going to struggle through it by myself. I'm going to do the very best I can. I'm going to give the best I can. And for hours I prepared, and I have 10 more times content that I never touched. But that's not the point. The point is, I am committed to each and every one of you to show up. I'm not going to be hypocritical and say one thing and do something else. It's a struggle, it's a challenge for all of us. But guess what? Nobody who rises very high gets there without overcoming struggles and challenges that are very high. Can I say that again? When you think about people who have achieved much in their life and their business, yes, they have struggled, but guess what? They have also come to a point in their business and their life where they have been able to achieve great things, all because they elected not to give up, but to actually um, make sure that they did what they needed to do to not just exceed, but to excel with greatness. And again, as I was preparing for this podcast today, I went back and I looked at some of the um, I looked at some of the people whose lives I've studied, and I brought some of the books. And I just want to make this point that there's no way to achieve great success without having great struggle and great challenge. And so we talk about, and this is my tattered book, we talk about Napoleon Hill, great struggles, great challenges. He talks about being born, his son being born with no ears, and how thankful he was to be able to have that struggle and that challenge. I finished this book by this guy by the name of Brandon Dawson. It's called Nine Figure Mindset, recommended by Darnell as a part of her program. And I highly suggest if you're looking for a coach, she's an excellent one. But the struggles that he had to overcome to have a 9-figure mindset. You do the math. And then, of course, Darnielle, I think this is one of the best books I have ever read, Move to Millions. Darnielle, I don't know if you'll ever see this. It doesn't matter if you do or don't, because I want everybody to know. Get this copy. Get this copy. Get a copy of this book. It's called Move to Millions by Darnielle, Dr. Darnielle Jervey Harmon. And I am excited and very proud to say, yes, I am in her coaching program, and I tell you, it is phenomenal. Gino Wickman, struggles, challenges, problems, EOS traction. Those are just some. Napoleon Hill gives us many, many, many people who have struggled, but they've overcome the struggles and the challenges at the same level of the problem. So I started off talking about the need for each of us to connect with the infinite intelligence. And I promised myself that every week, I have to remind myself that I would talk about this book that I wrote. It is called The Mcneill Factor: How to Start and Run a Successful Mastermind Group. Our mastermind group met yesterday for lunch, the original. And Alice Fincher, which some of you know in the group, is 87. Isabella is 80 something. I'm not going to tell your age, Izzy, but I'll tell Alice. And we talked about how far we've come in 40 years. Amazing. But we also realized, what if we did not have a struggle, a challenge, or problem? It would not have drawn us together to stay together all of these years, because the struggles and problems is how the infinite connects with you to take you through. I mean, if Imelda was on here today, she would tell you she earned that degree. Nobody gave it to her. But the struggles and the challenges, the spirit, the infinite, the sixth sense, whatever you want to call it, carried her through. Johnny Lloyd would tell you her story when she was sleeping on that carpet. The spirit, the infinite intelligence, these principles carried her through. You walk through your story. Doretha, oh yes, I can go back, but I won't go back too far, Doretha. The idea that you moved and you stayed in these principles, you wrote your goals. You wanted to have somebody to travel with. God blessed you with that special somebody. But the infinite, the spirit, helped pull you through. Each and every one of you listening to me, document your challenges, put it on paper, connect with the infinite intelligence, allow it to connect with you, allow it to pull you through and pull you up to the next level of infinite intelligence and understanding. Because the more you understand and study it, the more you allow it to study you and pull you up and pull you through. But always remember, as we each, have our struggles and go through this, but always remember to connect with others and help pull them through and help to connect them. I'm going to wrap up with this. As I thought about how do I connect with the infinite intelligence, I thought about this book that I wrote. It's called A Daily Date with Myself. And the book was actually written for my actual masterminding on a daily basis. And what I realized is that as I journaled in just a plain journal book, my thoughts started taking on a life of their own. And they started to be categorized in these areas. And this is what I wrote the journal about. First, utilizing the process from Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way, which I love her writing. Um, just some blank pages where you would journal your thoughts, just a couple of blank pages. And then second, my mind began to wander about the day behind me and the day ahead of me. And I asked the universe, the infinite, the spirit, give me 10 opportunities. Sometimes I got 5, sometimes I got 15, but most time I got 10. And I would just write real fast and write them down. Then I would write, what are the lessons that I've learned? Now, this is how I connect with the infinite intelligence. You connect however you choose. That's your story. But since I'm the only one on here today, this is mine. So the next page is, what am I thankful for? Two or three things. Of course, we know family. Of course, we know life. But the spirit, the infinite intelligence, I'm so thankful that he, she, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, Buddha, whatever you want to call it, allows me breath just for another day. And then I write, what are the desires of my heart? What are the desires of my heart? And so with those thoughts, that's how I connect with the infinite. You can choose how do you connect. Johnny Lloyd says, oh, let me go back to Doretha. Doretha says, we have worked all year on those 5 goals. Congratulations, Doretha. Johnny Lloyd said, yes, this is a seed, and I am so thankful. Johnny says, it just works. I encourage those who have not committed to coming to the annual meeting, do it now. I can honestly say it has moved the needle this year for me phenomenally. Johnny, thank you so very much. Everybody, thank you. I really want to go ahead and wrap up by just thanking all of you. And always remember to please subscribe, comment, like, share, but join us. We'll be on here next Saturday. We'll figure that out. But just want to continue to ask everybody to please remember, continue to think and grow richer. And I am honored that this today I did just a little bit better. And my desire as I continue with my education goal, doing this podcast, to just do just a little bit better and a little bit better and just a little bit better. So I want to thank all of you for joining. And it is actually after 9 o'clock. So, yes, I did it. Thank you, all of you. All right, everybody. Have a great day. See you next week.